Today's podcast is about a little-known missing persons case from over 40 years ago. At first, it reads like a bizarre disappearance or possibly foul play was involved. The research on this was very challenging, even frustrating at times, with so many brick walls and so little information available. Then I received some paperwork on this case, and it changed everything. Let's talk about Rex Douglas. Rex Douglas's early years were quite busy. The main source I'm using to piece this together is from a newspaper interview with Rex himself that I found from 1967. He gave his birth date as 12/22/24. Well, the article actually said 1944, but I assumed that it was a typo, near Nashville, Tennessee. He said that he was raised by his grandparents in Tennessee and graduated from high school in Tennessee in 1940. He then said that he enlisted in the Army after that and served until 1945. His job in the Army was in the military police. He served stateside duty mainly in Texas, Alabama, and Massachusetts. He goes on to say that he then attended Vanderbilt University for 2 years. He said that he left school to work in the construction business for a year. Rex Douglas then said that he went back into the Army during the Korean War and served as an MP once again, this time in the New York area. After 2 years in the military, he went back to Vanderbilt University for 1 year. After leaving Vanderbilt for the second time, Rex Douglas then spent the next 5 years in Des Moines working at the Bethel Mission Transient Shelter. He also had a radio program each Sunday on station KLEM called Morning Devotions. Next, he was a supply pastor in the Iowa area before serving as the pastor at the Church of the Nazarene in Le Mars, Iowa. While he was attending a Nazarene church in Des Moines, he would meet the daughter of the church's pastor, a woman named Ruth Bowerly, and the couple would wed in August of 1962. After the couple married, Rex would continue to pastor. In 1980, the couple moved to Lyons, Colorado, where Rex was working to build a mission for the Nazarene Church. While in Colorado, he became associated with the people from the Old Stone Congregational Church in Lyons. They eventually asked Rex Douglas to become their pastor. He accepted, and the couple would eventually move into the parsonage in Lyons that the church owned. Then in late January of 1984, Rex Douglas was going on a short trip to Missouri. The main reason for the trip, according to what few accounts are out there, was a land deal. He had also reportedly planned on going to a few other locations not far away. The following accounts of the trip are based mainly on credit card receipts. On January 25th, Rex would board a flight from Denver Stapleton International Airport and land at Lambert Airport in St. Louis. Then on January 26th, Douglas traveled to Springfield, Missouri with the side trip to Salem, Missouri. Then things get a little more confusing. Apparently, having returned from his side trip to Salem, some accounts say that on January 27th, Rex Douglas boarded a flight from Springfield to Kansas City, Missouri. Reports then say that, probably on January 28th, from Kansas City, he then flew to Des Moines, Iowa. He returned to St. Louis, probably on January 28th, and purchased a ticket from Lambert Airport back to Stapleton International Airport in Denver. The flight was to depart midday on January 30th. Reports say that he checked out of the hotel that morning, but he never picked up his boarding pass and never boarded the flight. He then disappeared into the ether. Rex had been in touch with his wife Ruth during his trip, and the last she heard from him, things were going well. It was even reported that he mailed her a letter while he was there, but I couldn't find much information or verification about it. The last he told her, he was supposed to fly back to Colorado on February 2nd. However, he would not arrive at Stapleton on that day. Of course, she was concerned when her husband didn't show up at the airport, so on February 4th, she would officially report him missing to the Lyons Police Department. The Lyons PD then started an investigation while simultaneously 3 Kansas City police detectives from the Fugitive Apprehension Unit began a search. Back in Lyons, Rex Douglass's congregation of around 80 people was heartbroken and confused at his absence. They certainly didn't think that he would have left on purpose, so they feared that he had met with foul play. It was hard to know where to search. This was a unique case in that the missing person had gone missing across the country from where he lived. Plus, his final days before he vanished were full of a lot of travel via short trips, but no clear reason given why or explanation of what all that he had done or whom he had spoken with. There were a few local newspaper articles published around the time of the disappearance, and they would provide a few more details about the circumstances and details of the trip. Jill Babcock, who was at the time the police chief of the Lyons PD, would initially say that they had no reason yet to suspect foul play. But she also said that the disappearance was perplexing and thought that it was far-fetched that Rex Douglass disappeared of his own free will. For some reason, Chief Babcock was tight-lipped about the reason for the pastor's trip to Missouri. She would only say that it was a personal business trip and that it was confidential. She also said that he met with a business associate and stayed at a Best Inn motel in Springfield overnight. She stated that he carried a substantial amount of cash on him for business purposes, but refused to disclose the amount. His wife Ruth also refused to comment on the nature of the trip, but did say that he decided to extend the trip into a short vacation by visiting the Kansas City headquarters of the First Church of the Nazarene. Newspaper reports, however, would give a few more details, and it was said that sources report that Douglass had gone to the Springfield, Missouri area to sell some property that he owned. Authorities were not able to conclusively verify that it was Rex Douglass that got off the plane at the Kansas City International Airport on the afternoon of January 27th, but they did say that his luggage was claimed. Now, for the first time, they would say that he apparently originally purchased a ticket for a flight from St. Louis back to Denver for January 28th, but then changed his reservation by telephone, switching it to January 30th, although he did not tell his wife about this, nor make arrangements to be picked up earlier at the airport. They did say that the last known whereabouts of Rex Douglass were on January 30th, 1984, at 9:37 a.m., when he checked out of the Holiday Inn in Bridgeton, Missouri. It was presumed at the time that he checked out then to board a 12:15 p.m. flight home. However, he never picked up the boarding pass and never boarded the flight. The report that he never picked up the boarding pass and didn't fly out of any flights at Lambert for the next 2 days caused police to speculate whether he even went to Lambert Airport that day. They said that Rex Douglass could have taken the hotel shuttle to the airport, although he probably wouldn't have stood out due to the high volume of travelers that are at the hotel. They also said that the trip from the hotel to the airport is by an interstate through open countryside, so it wasn't thought that he could have met with foul play if he did travel from the hotel to the airport before he disappeared. It was also considered that perhaps Rex Douglass decided to take a short trip within the city while waiting for his flight. However, Ruth Douglass said that her husband hated St. Louis and didn't know anyone that lived there. Authorities also checked hospitals and morgues in the area, but no one matching his description was found. Ruth Douglass would appear on television and give an interview about her husband's disappearance. Rex was described as a dedicated man with a quick sense of humor and compassion for others. She said that at the last time that she spoke to her husband was on January 26th, when he called to tell her that he was going to Kansas City. She said that he hadn't taken a vacation in a long time, and they decided that if he had a little extra time, that he should take it. Douglass did mention to his wife his plan to visit the Nazarene headquarters in Kansas City. However, when authorities checked to see if Rex had visited the church headquarters, they said he had not. The Boulder County Crime Stoppers would offer a $1,000 cash reward for information leading to Rex Douglass's whereabouts. The Lyons Police Department would request that the FBI join the case to help investigate, and they agreed. The church set up a special account at the local bank to collect funds to go toward hiring a private investigator. They would soon hire P.I. Dave Yates to look into the case. He would work on the case for a few months and then reported back to the church and let them know that he had exhausted all avenues in his search but had found nothing. The church would have to scramble, but made sure that there was someone in the pulpit every Sunday to give the sermon. They were also gracious in allowing Ruth Douglas to continue to stay at the church parsonage indefinitely during this difficult time and continued to pay her Rex's salary. Various churches in the Lyons community would also hold an Easter sunrise service in April of 1984 for over 100 people and dedicated the service to Rex Douglas. Then 1 year after the disappearance, there would be a newspaper article bringing the case some more attention. Lyons Police Chief Babcock said that there had been no leads as to Douglas's whereabouts. It is still unknown whether he is dead or alive. Ruth Douglas had not given up hope that her husband was still alive and tried to have a positive attitude. She found herself looking at passing cars, hoping for a glimpse of her husband. The Old Stone Congregational Church did decide to hire another pastor, so 6 months after the disappearance, Raymond Buckley would take over as pastor. Buckley would express his opinion that being a minister wasn't free from violence like it used to be, and that you're always having to look over your shoulder. He said that Rex Douglas was held in extremely high esteem in the community, and that hadn't changed. He said that few believed that he deliberately vanished. Then a year after the disappearance, there would finally be a development in this strange disappearance, and it would surprise everyone. In February of 1985, a letter was sent to Ruth Douglas's address from the Lambert Airport. It was asking them to claim a suitcase found nearly a year ago in one of the airport's coin-operated storage lockers. Rex Douglas's suitcase had now been found. But it would create more questions than answers. The Lyons Police Department arranged for Lambert Airport to have the suitcase flown to Stapleton Airport in Denver, where Chief Babcock would pick it up and examine it. However, the suitcase itself didn't really provide much in the way of clues. It was said that it only contained some clothing in it, some of it worn but not laundered, as well as a shaving kit. They didn't bother fingerprinting it, though, as it was handled by too many for that to be of help. Chief Lyons was frustrated and said that she had contacted Lambert Airport Police right after Douglas was reported missing and asked for a check of lockers. She also expressed that she was upset with how the airport police had handled the case. Lambert Airport Police Chief Lee McDaniel said that there were hundreds of lockers and he wouldn't run around checking all of them. He said that the lockers are routinely checked after 30 days and anything found is placed in storage. After a year, notices are sent out based on the identification on the luggage. That is why Ruth received the letter, although it was actually addressed to her missing husband. The big questions that arose after Rex Douglas's suitcase was found was who put it there and when. Bob Rogers, police chief in Bridgeton, which was the Missouri town of the hotel where Douglas last stayed, upon learning about the suitcase, said that he would distribute an updated flyer in hopes of obtaining new clues. Then there would be an article in the Boulder Daily Camera in 1990, 6 years after the Rex Douglas disappearance. They spoke to Ruth Douglas, who still hadn't lost heart that her husband would be found alive. She said that she keeps hoping that somehow there will be some explanation for this, and that he is still alive. But his suitcase being found a year later makes her feel uneasy. She said that she can't imagine him not taking his things with him if he was going somewhere else. The article did add a few new details, though. It appears that Rex Douglas made several draws on his bank cards during his travels, as much as a few $1,000s. However, it is thought that he used that money in the course of his business trip. They also said that Rex had told his wife that he would call her if he had a change of plans as far as when he would travel back. He apparently did have a change of plans, as he canceled and rebooked his flight to Denver, but yet he didn't call to tell her of the change. They also now say that Rex made a side trip to Des Moines, where he and Ruth used to live, in the middle of his business trip that he hadn't planned and that he didn't tell his wife about. As far as Ruth's opinion on why her husband made the unplanned side trip to Iowa, she speculated that perhaps he was going to look up old friends. However, when she contacted old friends and people they knew from churches there, no one had seen him during that time. It was also revealed that there had been a tragedy for the Douglas family shortly before Rex disappeared. George and Esther Snyder, Esther was Ruth's sister, were in an automobile accident near Lyons, Colorado in December of 1983 when their car slid on some black ice. Esther Snyder was not seriously injured, but unfortunately, George Snyder would die from his injuries a few days later. However, Ruth Douglas doubts this was a factor in his traveling to Des Moines because her late brother-in-law George hadn't lived there in years. She did say that her husband was certainly upset by his brother-in-law's death, as the two were close and shared similar interests. She speculated that perhaps her husband may have internalized his grief over Snyder's death. Ruth also had a message for her missing husband on the chance that he was still out there and alive. She said, "Rex, wherever you are, if you're alive and there's any type of problem, whatever it is, it can be worked out." Ruth said that the last 6 years have been hard, but that she does have a wonderful brother and sister, as well as a great church family and a strong faith in God. In the 1990 article, the current Lyons police chief, Dick Dutrow, said that occasionally they do still get information or inquiries about the case. He said that 3 months prior, they received a phone call from Kansas about an incoherent man who had no identification. He sent photos of Rex Douglas, and Kansas City authorities were able to determine that it was not the missing pastor. After that, seemingly, there were no further updates or new information concerning the disappearance of Rex Douglas. The next mention of Rex's disappearance is from an article that author Sylvia Pedham published in the Boulder Daily Camera newspaper in 2017. In her research, Pedham did submit a FOIA request to the FBI in hopes of viewing their files on the case. Somewhat surprisingly, they declined to release the files, even though it had been 33 years since the disappearance. The reason is unclear. I reached out to Sylvie Pedham in my research. She was gracious in her response, but said that she hadn't really learned anything new since she had written the article 8 years ago, and wished me luck going forward. So that is pretty much all that is out there doing internet research along with newspaper archives concerning the odd disappearance of Rex Lee Douglas. Since there was so little available, I used some resources that I don't normally have to use. I also had the help of 2 friends in my research, so I want to give a special thank you to Clinton Daniels and Mike Angeline for helping me dig into this case. In my effort to learn more, I sent a records request to the Boulder County Sheriff's Department, and reading it pretty much turned this case upside down for me. So next week, we're going to talk about what all I learned in my research and what the police file had to say. Let's just say that the biggest question is no longer what happened to Rex Lee Douglas in 1984. The bigger question now is who Rex Lee Douglas really was. That concludes part 1 of my podcast on Rex Lee Douglas. Tune in next week where we'll talk about the surprising things I've learned in my additional research as well as what the police file contained. You can find my podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, and now YouTube and YouTube Music. I have all of my original articles on my website at Lost and Found Blogs. I also have social media pages on Facebook, X, and Instagram under that name. I have a Patreon under Lost and Found Podcast where I cover lesser-known missing persons cases. You can reach me via email at lostandfoundpodcast@yahoo. And remember that cold cases stay cold because their story stops getting told.